Hello, everyone. Welcome to Winthrop and the World. I'm Paul Baskin, and with us today is Pam Racicot. Pam is a longtime resident of Winthrop, and back now you're living out in Florida, but Pam was part of the Winthrop Playmakers, which used to be a fixture here in town for a long time, right, Pam?
Yes, a long time, since 1937.
It started in 1937, and you started with it when?
Not till 71.
Till 71.
I mean, I attended shows when I was younger, but I didn't start getting involved until I was 70, until year of 1971.
Right, so it used to do plays in town, theater
Absolutely,
in town.
absolutely.
And it stopped when?
Oh gosh, 2018, I think. We were here for a long time.
Yeah.
And eventually we had to do things like, incorporate and all that sort of thing, become nonprofit and whatever. Anyway, we had a really long run in Winthrop. And some school teachers in 1937, the reason that there was a Winthrop Playmakers, they decided they wanted to do plays. They were mostly English teachers, and I don't remember all of their names, but some of the early ones were Anne Hay and Peg Smith, Margaret Smith, Eben Colby. I don't know if any of those names would mean anything to anybody these days.
You're talking from back in the 30s.
Oh, I'm talking about, 30s, 40s, yeah.
So help us understand what it was like in Winthrop to have an actual theater company in town, in Winthrop, and what...
Well, it was a little bit obscure. I mean, there was a following, but it wasn't something that everybody was involved in. I didn't find out until I was involved later on in life that my father had been a supporter from the beginning. And he attended and, supported them with financially, but he didn't do anything there. In fact, when I was a teenager, I had wanted to join, and he said, no, you don't want to do that.
So your father was a supporter of the Winthrop Playmakers,
Yes.
but didn't want you to do it?
Well, he wanted me to do other things, like go to college and do all that. He knew if I had gotten involved, I would have spent my life there, which I eventually did after I was married and then divorced and had a couple of kids. And, my kids were raised at the Playhouse. That's where we sort of spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
But we did a lot of shows, too, a lot of kids shows, a lot of children's workshops. One of the early, well, I don't know how early on she was the track coach here in Winthrop, Patricia McGee. She was very involved with the Playmakers, and she was also a realtor. So when the Baptist church was going out of business, so to speak, she said, Pam, we've got to buy this church. And I said, okay, whatever. We need a place. We need a venue. So we put our heads together when we had a little money and put down a down payment, and they sold it to us for $20,000, which was, to us, overwhelming at the time.
What year was this?
This was in 1972.
This is a property near Ingleside
This was
Park?
down, Herman Street, which is now condos. It was a Baptist church. They kept the facade. It looks still like it used to, but it's much better shape.
Right.
But anyway, let me go back to 1937. The first show they ever did at Winthrop Playmakers was called The Ghost Train. And we somewhere, I don't know where anymore, I'm sorry to say, have a history of all of the shows that have ever been done within the Playmakers. They didn't do musicals until the 40s because there were no men. Men were hard to come by. They had families and stayed home with their families and whatever, were active with their families, until the war, and Fort Banks came along, and Fort Banks was full of men, and they had nothing to do. So they would come up and they'd be in the shows very often. And then, of course, the war's over. Fort Banks got less and less, but by then it had gotten to be a real community effort, and there were more people involved, families and children of people. And the first show I ever did there was in 1971. It was The Man of La Mancha, with a very talented director. And I was a chain rattler. That was my job.
Okay.
But I'd always been interested in the theater. In fact, my high school drama teacher was a very involved member of Playmakers, and he kept suggesting that I get involved. Oh, you got to get involved. And again, my father was not encouraging. I mean, he didn't discourage me, and he didn't forbid me from doing it, but I went to the shows. But, there were other things to do when I was a teenager. Anyway, then after I got married. I went with my husband down to South Carolina, lived there for 4 years, came back, and when we came back, we wanted an outlet of some sort, and we both had been involved in Playmakers, in theater, through the high school. We were in the high school shows, and so we joined, and a very, very talented guy came bouncing over to us the first night we were there to join. And his name was Jimmy Grana, who was a very good friend of Pat McGee, and they had been running Playmakers for a long time. But they were so excited to get some new blood, because we were always looking for new blood. And so, that's what happened. You step one foot in the door, and you were there for life.
Yeah.
And it was very fulfilling for me. It took a long time for us to pay off the building. Well, when I say long time, it was maybe 5 or 6 years, but we all worked our butts off trying to, pay that $20,000 down. We did bake sales and, all that sort of thing. Because when we moved into the Baptist church to make it a theater, it was full of, what do you call that, like a flea market. Because the Baptists had been trying to support themselves with selling fleas. So we did that. We got rid of all that stuff. Bake sales, children's theater groups. We did the first couple of summers. A friend of mine and I ran children's theater groups. We did 3 productions of The Wizard of Oz, which was very popular, and it made some money. So anything that made money was good.
Where was it located before you bought the church?
It wasn't. We didn't have a location. There was an Oddfellows Hall where they would rehearse sometimes, and if the show was small enough, they could do it there.
Right across the street here from WC.
Well, no, it was down where there's a building next to where, was it McDonald's? Is McDonald's still there?
It's Nick's now, but
Nick's, whatever. Yeah, Nick's. There was a building next to Nick's, and it was that area that the Oddfellows had a building. It sort of was on both properties, and with a car dealership behind it. And one night after Playmakers had all left and everything, about like 3 o'clock in the morning, the place burned down. So that was sad. But other times that we would do productions, we'd rent the auditorium across the street. I think that's still there. Okay. There was a junior high school, middle school, or whatever. And now it's where the hockey rink is, I believe. Yeah. Okay. And so we would do that, but that got expensive. Paying rent to do a production, because you had to be in there for at least a week before. Right. And we had, for rehearsal spaces, we used there was an old church building. I don't think that's there anymore. What is there on Herman Street?
You're going to need someone who's an old timer.
Okay.
Some of these things.
It's on Herman. It was on Herman Street.
Yeah.
And it was an old church building, and Girl Scout troops used to meet there, and Boy Scouts, and little local community groups, and we used to rehearse there. But it became incredibly exciting when the Baptist church was being sold, unfortunately, for the Baptists. Yeah. Because, when we could have our own space, that was incredible. Now, there was a lot of work to be done. I had to do a lot of work. Because with the first show we did there was, ironically, Godspell. So it worked out fine on the altar and sitting in pews to watch it. But after that, then, we started to do a few other things. And the altar didn't work, so they built the stage, and then, they expanded the stage and kept building and building. Right. But, it was an old building. Yeah. And so we had put our heart and souls into it, but everything, there was always something going wrong. But, and even when we first owned the building, we had to do the big shows down at the auditorium, because you have a cast of 30, 40 people. We couldn't fit them on the stage there. Right. So, and that got expensive, too.
What did the place hold?
Well, by the time we finished renovating, it held about 180 upstairs. And we had a small theater, a little black box theater downstairs that held about, maybe 60. That was for people to try out, to see if they were able to and wanted to direct. Right. So they would do a small show down there, and then, the powers that be would say, oh yeah, that was pretty good, so,
And how many shows did you do a year when you got going?
Well, at first, Playmakers only did maybe 3 a year.
Okay.
A fall, a winter, a fall, a spring, and a summer. And then as we went along, we kept thinking, well, the more shows we do, the more money we'll make, and we'll be able to support ourselves better. So we ended up sometimes doing maybe 4 or 5 shows a year. There was always a summer review.
Okay.
That incorporated anybody in town that wanted to participate or could sing or dance or whatever. And it was usually a review based on some sort of theme, like Andrew Lloyd Webber, or, you know, music from, I don't know, across the board, different old musicals and things we had done before and what have you. And that was always very popular. But it also got to be to the point where it was really hot to rehearse, and it was hot for the audiences. And in the winter, it was cold in the audiences.
Right.
I remember one show we did was Cat in the Hot Tin Roof. And the Hot Tin Roof, this poor actress that was playing the girl, the woman, she in one scene had to be in just a slip, and she was supposed to be hot and sweaty, and she was running an ice cube over her. Well, it was like 40 degrees in the theater.
Yeah.
And the poor thing, she nearly froze to death. But, you know, and I remember one performance, one of the audience members went down and pulled the blanket. We had a drape over the grand piano we had. She pulled the blanket over herself.
To keep warm.
To keep warm.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an indication that we needed to do something about the heating system, so we did that.
Yeah.
Again, money, 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 money. And then, you know, I mean, and for years we just did, you know, your average kind of community theater show, and with participation, we kept having junior playmakers, because that was a surefire, we thought, way to get people, young people involved, and then kind of grow up in the playmakers. And a lot did, but then a lot went to college and, you know, got better at what they were doing, and, you know, found that they, oh, well, I'll do this and I'll do that. And so, you know, they kind of lost interest. But then as they would get older, they would come back.
So were these professionals in the sense that you paid them salaries, or was it volunteer? How did it
Not
work?
at first, not at first. Later on in our lifetime, we figured out that we had to pay people, so not actresses and actors. Sometimes we'd give them tickets or a stipend of some sort, but that was rare. But we paid lighting people and directors and choreographers, and because it was their livelihood. And, you know, for somebody to come in from, I don't know, Connecticut or someplace to direct a show in Playmakers, you know, you had to like find a place for them to live maybe for a few weeks and give them a. Believe me, our stipends were not high, but we tried to go with the flow, and, you know, the way things were going. So.
These weren't dinner theaters, right? Because I know some
We
of
did
them-
some dinner theaters.
We did some dinner theaters.
We did, yep, yep. And a friend of mine and I actually, one summer, to raise money to sell off the building, early on, we took a show on the road and took it to different dinner theaters or different restaurants around the area, North Shore, South Shore, wherever. And we'd pack up the scenery, which was not much, and the furniture in a couple of station wagons, and drive to a restaurant someplace and do a show. And that was fun. But we also did do some dinner theaters at the Playhouse. We'd have, the dinner was downstairs, and then the show would be upstairs. But, you know, and even then, sometimes the show would be downstairs and then all through the audience and all that sort of thing. We tried to have as much fun as we could, but also make it work. I mean, as far as keeping the place afloat. I mean, this was all volunteer.
Right.
Nobody on the board or anything ever had a salary or anything. This
Including
was
you.
all just, no.
How many hours are you putting into this?
Well, let's see, 3 nights a week, at least, sometimes more. And if you're in the administration, because I was a board member and the president quite often, a couple of times anyway, you know, you get the call at 2 o'clock in the morning that the fire alarm's going off, and, you know, somebody's trying to break in or something, so we'll run it down. So our number of hours could be 20 hours a week, could be 30.
And you were trying to do it, were you doing a full-time job
Oh,
on
of
top
course,
of that?
yeah. I always had a full-time job too, yeah, and raising children.
Right.
Not that I'm so special. Everybody was. Everybody had family, and, you know, I mean, the younger people, they were focusing on their careers, and they were trying to get their feet wet at the Playhouse and into theater. In fact, one of our famous participants years and years ago. I don't know if anybody's familiar with her anymore. Jane Curtin from Saturday Night Live.
Jane Curtin was part of Winthrop Playmakers?
She was part of Winthrop Playmakers. She was, well, it was when she was in college. And she was doing something for her summer. She had to do something for the summer and get some credits. So she did makeup for us and, you know, costumes and that sort of thing. And she was great. She was just a nice, normal person.
Right.
It was before she became super funny and all that sort of thing, and, you know, famous.
So I mean, I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to have that in town. How important, I don't know if you can speak to it, how important was it to the overall town to have that going on, to have...
It went in waves. Sometimes it was super important to people, families and high school students and, you know, the parents. And other times it was just something that, you know, well, we might go to the Playmakers for a while. For a while, we had really good subscriber backers and all that sort of thing that would buy tickets for the whole season. And they were great. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the name Gert Honan, Richie Honan's mother. She used to buy like 30 tickets for a show and bring the whole family. You know, so a lot of the townspeople were very supportive in that way. But then that kind of waned a little bit. But it would go, like I said, in waves. Sometimes there was a lot of support, and it depended on the show.
The show?
You know, you do a show with kids, and you've got everybody in town wants to come and see it because everybody's parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and sisters and brothers, they want to see the show. Right. Or see what his name, Cindy Lou Who in the Seussical. That was one of our famous, well-known shows that we did. Had a good time with that.
What was the interplay with the school system then, too?
Well, that was a whole different story because, of course, the school system had their own drama department. So if we were doing a show that had teenagers, we had to wait and work around their schedule because their shows obviously came first. Right. I can't remember his name now. Neil. Anyway, his name was Neil. He was a drama teacher at the high school. Shapiro. Anyway, he was very popular with the teenagers, and, you know, if he was doing a show, we'd back off and he'd have the kids for his show. Because remember, there's a small pool of talent. I mean, it's not a huge town, but even 20,000 people or so is your pool of talent in high school is pretty small.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is most of the actors were from Winthrop?
At first, yes. At first, most of the actors were from Winthrop. Then others would come from, you know, Saugus, Revere, Melrose. You know, I mean, a lot of other communities were a little more attractive to people like that would move around because there were groups in all of those towns. There was the Saugus Town Criers, Marblehead Little Theater, which is still going strong. They bought a building, I don't know how many years ago, but I remember she came to me and she said, "Pam, we're trying to buy a building." And I said, just don't.
Oh, really? Because you were saying
no, well, no, I was remembering the hard time. And even then I said to her, no, of course I don't not buy a building because I'm saying so, but just know you're in for a lot of work, a lot of work.
But either way you are, because you're
either way.
I mean, you're doing it for the love of the theater, clearly.
Exactly, yes.
What about the audiences? Were they predominantly people from Winthrop, or you get drawing from outside?
Winthrop. Well, it would depend, again, on the cast, because if a cast member was from Medford, and they'd have a following, friends, family, etc., they'd all come from Medford or wherever. So, and it depended on the show, too. If the show was a very well-known, popular show, people would flock to it. Bye Bye Birdie. We did Bye Bye Birdie, like the show after we had done Into the Woods. Now, Into the Woods was not a well-known show when we did it. We did it because we wanted to do it. It was a lovely show, and we had the right talent for it, and it cost us a fortune. But it was a beautiful, beautiful show. We made like $200 net, which was really not enough.
Well, what were you making on a good show?
Well, the next month we decided we're going to do a show. We got to make money, so we'll do Bye Bye Birdie. We did Bye Bye Birdie with cardboard sets and, you know, costumes from kids' closets and that sort of thing, and we made a fortune. So, you know, I mean, it depended upon the show. It wasn't necessarily the quality of the show. It depended upon the show itself, the entertainment quality, and the cast. You know, like I said, if it's a big cast, 30, 40 people, you're going to have lots of people.
So 2018 is when it ended?
2018, we discovered that we had, well, we went through a lot of ups and downs, but we discovered that we just really didn't have the energy anymore.
Yeah.
I was getting too old to hold the thing together, and the young people, they had they had lives.
Right.
And they didn't necessarily want to be tied just to the Winthrop Playmakers. They were working in other theaters, and they all had jobs. And I mean, even though they grew up in the Winthrop Playmakers, not necessarily in Winthrop, but, you know, grew up with the Playmakers. And they love Playmakers. I mean, the saddest thing we ever did was get together for, I'll make cry saying it, we got together for one last party, and we all got on the stage and sang the things we did for love. And, you know, which was a very meaningful song for people in theater,
Right.
or people anywhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're all on the stage, nobody in the audience, and we're all on the stage crying and singing our hearts out. But it was at that point that, you know, we just knew we couldn't go on any longer and support the building and have the energy to, you know, because it's not just, hey kids, let's put on a show. It's, hey kids, let's put on a show, let's build a set, let's build the costumes, let's, you know,
Right.
do everything. So.
What was the value of it to the community, do you think, in terms of, I mean, the theater, people talk about it helps local restaurants, it helps other kind of commerce?
It did. The local restaurants loved us because that was what would be in our advertising, would, you know, just go to so-and-so's and they'll give you, you know, a great meal and blah, blah, blah. They might even give you, you know, 5% off or something. Right. And they did. They supported us very, very well. And it was a boon to their businesses, but, right. You know, and not even that's enough to really, I mean, when I say we didn't have the money, we didn't have money for a new heating system, right. For a new air conditioning system, for the place was looking awful, and the members would come down every now and then, or a Saturday or whatever, and we'd have a work party, and everybody would, you know, try and work on something and fix it up a little bit, but what we needed was about $300,000 to right. really get it back into shape. Right. So it was the time to do it for everybody. Sad as it was the time.
Is there an argument could be made that $300,000 would be worth the town spending? I mean, I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking, like, is there a financial argument made for supporting something like that because of the overall value to the town?
We were in. The town manager at the time, nice man, and some of the board of, you know, like Ron Vecchia was on the, whatever you call it, I don't know.
It's, town council. Town
council, stuff like that. Yeah, we met with them many times, and they were having their own financial problems, you know what I mean? And to throw money into a theater, which it wasn't representative of the whole community, just a portion of it. Right. And it was artistic and all that sort of thing, and it was a cultural you know, boon to the town. But I don't think that it was ever going to work out. In fact, it didn't work out. We sort of had handshake promises and all that sort of thing, but, you know, I mean, didn't ever really happen.
So part of it is you're talking about the fact that you reached a point where you couldn't do it, but then that raises the question of why there wouldn't be another generation that would come along. What's your sort of diagnosis of why?
I think it was just a unilateral thing that a lot of communities experienced during that time. I think that it was just, I don't know, something, what do you call it? It was happening everywhere. I know that the Saugus Little Theater had a time when they were desperate to get people involved. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it was, I don't know, I guess everybody was focused on something else.
So you mentioned, I think you have some money left over from this that you could potentially go to.
We would love to get some, well, we have it, it's in a scholarship fund now. And each year we send a scholarship to the 2 graduating high schoolers that are going to, I don't know, well, either they've been involved in theater within the high school or somewhere, or they're hoping to continue their education in that area. And we've been doing that for about, I don't know, well, since 2018. We did it before, but it was on a much lower level. We didn't have any money to give scholarships. So in fact, some years we had to really pinch. But you know, the scholarship got bigger after the building was closed and sold. there's still money there that if anybody wants to put on a show, start up the Winthrop Playmakers again, you find a venue,
Yeah.
and we're in it with you.
Yeah, I hear you.
There are people in Winthrop. I know we still have some members that live in Winthrop with their children, and their children are getting to the age where they would like to have them involved in some sort of community theater. And there isn't. In the Winthrop school system, or I guess any school system, you don't really get a theater opportunity until you get to middle school.
Okay.
So there's a big group of elementary school. Now I know that Kelly and Eric Gaynor, they do a show a couple of times a year at the St. Michael's Church. And the Winthrop School of Performing Arts, which was founded by Trudy Montesano, that was her maiden name, years ago. And they used to do, shows quite often because Trudy was very interested in that. I'm not sure they do them anymore. I don't know. I think they have the classes in theater and vocal and all that sort of thing, but I'm not sure they do shows. At least I haven't heard of any. If they do, But there are, like I said, there are people who used to be playmakers. Before they were married, then after they were married, and now with their children, that are interested in an elementary school level.
Yeah.
So, I would love to see them get involved. We talked last summer with one of them, a couple of them, and they're still trying to put something together.
Yeah.
So,
So, you live now in Florida?
I do.
Yes, but you're still in touch, I take it, with people.
Oh yeah,
like you.
they're my babies.
Yeah, right.
They're my family.
So, one of the things that theater is known for is obviously pushing the boundaries and tackling topics that maybe people don't want to talk about.
Yep.
Was that part of what went on here? I noticed that
We
some of
did do,
Yeah.
as you mentioned earlier, we did the Laramie Project.
which is about Matthew Shepard, the
Shepard and
Wyoming
his terrible event.
It was a young gay man.
Young
that was
gay
killed.
man who
Yeah.
was beaten and tied to a fence in Laramie, Wyoming, and left to die by two people that we know of. I don't know how much more they've studied it. I've kind of got so overwhelmed by it that it was a very emotional experience for all of us. I mean, rehearsing for it and then performing it, I don't know how many times, 6 or 8 times. It was hard. It was hard to do, but it was good and it was worthwhile. And the town, embraced it, which was good. We haven't really done anything that was terribly earth-shattering. I mean, we did hair. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. You did one on, I think an AIDS victim was dying.
Oh yeah.
Something box.
Yes, the shadow box.
Shadow box.
Yeah.
I mean, these aren't. So you don't think that at all contributes to any kind of situation in which the town.
Oh no,
or
no, no,
elements
no,
of it
no,
would be-
no! Because there are people in this town, or there were people in this town who would love that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they would support us, even because the local cultural council
Yeah.
was involved to a degree. They would always support us. Between the Playmakers and the Cultural Council, we organized a sort of a, I don't know what you call it. It was a day-long event, and there was a historian, Dave Hubbard, and we all did. My daughter drove a trolley for a while, and so she came and she took a trolley tour around Winthrop, and Dave would give the historic, what happened here, and this was the cow path, and that sort of thing, which was very involved with Playmakers. And back at the Playhouse, we had performances of all kinds of things going on. Dance, international dance. We had some Indian dance and some, I don't know, there was a, what do you call it? Jamaican kind of thing, and so, and there was in the town that the restaurants participated too. They would have a deal at a restaurant around town, and so that was a fun thing for the town, and I forget what we called it. I don't know, whatever it was.
Do you see anything visibly different from the town now when you come into it that says, this is a town with a theater versus this is a town that doesn't have a theater? Is that anything that people really notice when they come into a place?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I have a very, theatrical interested background, so as soon as we moved down to Florida, I mean, the first thing my husband and I did was look for the local theaters, and there are some really good ones. There are some community theaters. There's a lot of theaters, and I guess you can kind of tell from not from first looking at the town, but after being here for a while, you would probably realize whether there is a theater here or not. And I don't know, maybe people don't want it anymore. And Winthrop's changed. I mean, when I was growing up, Winthrop was, let's see, it was the yacht clubs and sailing and that sort of thing. We had a very active, we had a hospital, which we don't have anymore. And so, you know, I mean, like I said, things change. Yeah. And then for a while, Winthrop was nothing but football, yeah. Which is fine, you know, if that's your, you know, interest.
Yeah.
So anyway, things, like I said, change.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that the town is interested right now in supporting theater, but, you know, it'd be fun to have my friends see if that is a possibility and flush that out and,
yeah.
you know, try it out. Give it a shot.
Okay. Well, we will see. Pam
Racicot,
so. Thank you so much for visiting with us, coming up from Florida and telling us about this really interesting story.
You know, if there's anything left of Playmakers anywhere,
yeah.
Anybody interested?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, we can leave that in the notes for where to find you then.
Get in touch.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.